The lights were warm, almost too warm, bathing the studio in a golden glow that tried to pretend nothing was wrong. It was just another Tuesday morning at the View. The audience buzzed with anticipation, mostly moms, students, fans of pop culture, and loyal daytime viewers who had rearranged their day for a front-row seat to the live taping. And then she walked in, Jennifer Lawrence, clad in a cream-colored dress that shimmered ever so slightly under the stage lights, strolled onto the set with her signature, slightly goofy grin and an energetic wave to the crowd. The applause was thunderous. Someone in the second row screamed, "We love you, Jen!" And she shot back a quick wink, blowing a kiss. It was supposed to be a victory lap, her new film. Red Dust Rising was already getting Oscar buzz. Critics called her performance career-defining. She was back, not just America's sweetheart, Hollywood's resilient queen, the kind of guest The View lived for. She made her way to the guest chair with ease, a short hug with Whoopi, a warm nod to Sarah, a shared laugh with the guest co-host for the day. But when her eyes landed on Joy Behar, something subtle shifted. Joy's smile was polite, but that was all. Polite. The corners of her mouth curled upward, but her eyes, those piercing, analytical eyes, remained ice-cold. Jennifer noticed. Everyone noticed. As the segment began, Whoopi did her usual introduction, full of praise and playfulness. But before the laughter could linger, Joy leaned in. "So, Jennifer," she said, tone flat but sharp as a blade, "you're back on another press tour. Another role where you're the misunderstood, defiant woman standing tall against the world. Don't you think you're getting a little typecast?" The air changed. Not a gasp. Not yet. But the silence between the words felt longer than it should have. Jennifer blinked, a flash of confusion in her eyes, before she recovered. She laughed softly, then responded with grace. "Well, Joy, I think, if we're being typecast for playing strong women, then maybe we're finally doing something right in this industry." The audience clapped, slightly unsure. Was that tension they sensed? Joy wasn't done. "It's just interesting," she said, voice dripping with faux innocence, "how someone can go from falling on the Oscars stage to suddenly being the face of every serious female character in Hollywood. Isn't that convenient?" Now the gasp came. A real one, the kind that makes the studio crew instinctively glance toward the control booth, the kind that prompts a hand signal for the live feed to be placed on a delay, just in case. Jennifer's smile froze for a heartbeat. She tilted her head, not quite understanding if this was a joke or an ambush. "Well," she said slowly, "I like to think my work speaks for itself." "Oh, I'm sure it does," Joy said with a smirk. "When the lines are good and the lighting is flattering." The View had always balanced drama with daytime diplomacy. But this was something else. The co-hosts shifted uncomfortably. Whoopi narrowed her eyes. Sarah cleared her throat. Even the guest co-host leaned forward, silently signaling what the hell is happening. Jennifer's voice grew firmer. "Look, I've been fortunate to work with amazing directors on projects that matter. And yeah, I've had some very public stumbles, but I've never let any of that stop me from doing the work." "Work," Joy repeated, the word almost an accusation. "Or image maintenance." This time, Jennifer leaned forward, her hand resting slightly on the edge of the table. Calm, but now visibly irritated, "Are you asking about my film, or are you just trying to take shots at me?" The studio went quiet. Joy cocked her head. "I'm asking what the audience wants to know. People are tired of the same media narrative. The whole down-to-earth Jennifer thing, is that even real anymore? Or is it just another Hollywood product?" Jennifer's face changed. The charm peeled back. For a moment, you saw the woman behind the smile, the one who had clawed her way from a small town in Kentucky to global stardom. And she wasn't amused. "That thing, as you call it, is just me," she said, her voice even. "I've never tried to be anything but myself." "Maybe that's why it bothers you," Joy blinked. "Excuse me. I'm just wondering," Jennifer said, tone cooling, "why you've made this interview about tearing me down instead of asking about the work I'm here to talk about. Unless you have a personal issue with me." The audience stirred. Murmurs fluttered like the wind, picking up before a storm. Joy gave a sharp laugh. "Oh, honey, I don't have personal issues with actresses who get lucky. That did it." The collective gasp wasn't just from the crowd, it came from every corner of the studio. Even the floor director audibly muttered, "Oh no." Jennifer's eyes narrowed. The warmth drained from them completely. "I've worked damn hard," she said, her voice low and razor-sharp. 14-hour days. Emotional scenes that leave you hollow. "I've trained, I've studied, and I've bled for some of these roles. And I didn't come here to be talked to like a child." Joy folded her arms. "I'm just saying what other people won't say." Jennifer fired back. "No, you're saying what you want to say. You came into this with your mind made up. You think I'm just some girl who tripped into fame, and you resent it. That's not journalism, Joy. That's bitterness." Whoopi's voice cut in. All right, let's bring it back. We're talking about Red Dust Rising, right? Let's hear about the role." But the spell was broken. The tension had taken root, and neither woman was backing down. Joy raised a hand toward Whoopi, not breaking her gaze from Jennifer. "No, we're not just going to gloss over this. She needs to understand that there are people in this industry who've earned their seats the hard way." Jennifer stood up, her hands still on the table, steady and firm, her eyes locked with Joy's. "So have I." The studio audience didn't clap, they didn't gasp. They sat in stunned, electrified silence. This wasn't a show anymore. This wasn't PR. This was real. 2 generations of women in media, 2 opposing worldviews. One studio set now, a battlefield, and they had just begun to fight. Jennifer Lawrence didn't sit back down. She remained standing, her breath slow and measured, but the energy radiating off her was anything but calm. Her dress shimmered subtly under the studio lights, but her eyes, steely and cold, were fixed like a laser on Joy Behar, behind the camera. Producers huddled together like surgeons, mid-crisis, mouths moving, eyes darting between the control boards and the set. Someone whispered urgently into a headset. No one dared yell, "Cut," because this was no longer just an interview. It was a reckoning. Joy Behar leaned back in her chair, arms folded, lips curled into a smirk that wasn't meant to be charming. It was the smirk of someone who had waited for this moment, someone who had sharpened her knives behind the scenes. "You know what I find fascinating, Jennifer?" Joy began, voice loud enough to carry, but soft enough to sting. "How you've built this entire career on being relatable, tripping up the stairs, laughing at yourself, making jokes, like you're just a regular girl who happened to stumble onto a red carpet." Jennifer crossed her arms. "But the moment someone challenges you, really challenges you, you drop the act," Joy continued. "And suddenly, it's all righteous fury and condescending lectures." "I'm not dropping any act," Jennifer replied, voice low and sharp. "I'm just not pretending to smile through disrespect." The audience erupted in a mix of applause and gasps. A few brave souls clapped loudly. Others looked stunned. A woman in the 3rd row mouthed, "What is happening?" "Disrespect," Joy repeated. "You're on our show." "No," Jennifer snapped. "You ask provocative questions. You poke until something breaks, and then pretend it was journalism." "Maybe something needed to break," Joy said coolly. Whoopi's voice cut in again. "Okay, we're moving into dangerous territory here. Jennifer, let's talk about Red Dust Rising," but Joy raised her voice over Whoopi's, not pivot. "Let's address what's really happening." She turned her chair to face Jennifer completely. "You came in here expecting a standing ovation. You wanted us to fawn over you, talk about your serious acting, and pretend you're still the fresh-faced girl from the Hunger Games. But the truth is, Hollywood's moved on." A single audible gasp cut through the studio. Jennifer laughed, not kindly, not playfully, but like someone who had heard enough. Her voice dropped, hushed and deadly serious. "You know what I think this is really about?" she said. "Not about me. It's about you, because you're sitting in that chair, looking at someone half your age who's done more in 10 years than you have in 30, and it burns you." Joy leaned forward, her tone icy. "You arrogant little no. Don't even try to spin it," Jennifer shot back, stepping closer to the panel. "You didn't come here to have a conversation. You came here to pick a fight, and now you're mad that I'm fighting back." The room vibrated with tension. Every crew member had gone still. The cameras kept rolling, unsure whether to capture drama or brace for fallout. The audience couldn't look away. "I've worked with some of the most respected people in this industry," Jennifer said, her voice rising. "I've endured media pressure, gender bias, paparazzi, harassment, and I kept my head down. I kept working. But you sit at this desk week after week, taking shots at people who are actually doing something. Oh, give me a break." Joy barked. You think acting makes you a martyr? I think belittling women on national television makes you a bully, Jennifer countered, without missing a beat. The audience gasped again. A low hum of murmuring began, people whispering to one another, uncertain whether they were watching entertainment or a real-time disaster. Joy turned to her co-hosts. Are any of you going to jump in, or are we just letting her monologue now? Whoopi looked away, biting her lip. Sarah tried again to change the subject. Maybe we can pivot to the theme of the movie, Joy snapped. No, we're not pivoting. She wants to throw accusations around. Let her defend them. Jennifer's voice remained calm, but every syllable sliced through the air. I don't have to defend anything. My work speaks for itself. My reputation speaks for itself. I came here to talk about a movie that's personal to me, but instead, I'm standing in front of someone who thinks personal attacks are a form of journalism. Joy stood up. It was sudden and jarring. The chair screeched against the floor, bouncing back a few inches. A camera operator flinched. Joy's eyes locked with Jennifer's like a heat-seeking missile. You think you can walk onto my set and accuse me of being jealous, she growled. You have no idea the battles I've fought to earn this seat? I've been on television longer than you've been alive. Jennifer stepped closer, then act like it. Boom. The audience gasped so hard it was nearly a collective inhale. A woman in the front row covered her mouth. The studio fell into an eerie, suspended silence. You want to talk about respect, Joy? Jennifer asked, voice cracking now not from fear, but from emotional exhaustion. I've sat through interviews where people questioned my intelligence, my politics, my body. I've smiled through insults. I've laughed off cruelty, but I won't laugh this off. Joy's fists clenched. Her voice trembled. You're so full of yourself, Jennifer. You think your little Oscar gives you a free pass to lecture people. Jennifer didn't back down. No, but it does mean I deserve to be treated like a professional, and not as a punchline for a bitter woman who forgot what empathy looks like. The control booth was chaos. One producer said, "Cut to commercial." Another said, "No, no one's leaving their screens," because now it wasn't just a confrontation, it was a cultural moment. Joy shook her head, almost in disbelief. You think you're going to walk off this set and be the hero of this story? People are going to see through you. Jennifer, breathing hard but standing firm, said softly, "Let them watch. Let them decide." Sarah tried one more time. Jennifer, the film. Can you tell us what it means to you? For just a moment, a single moment of the Jennifer people knew. She looked at Sarah with sincerity. It's about surviving in hostile environments, she said. About being underestimated and pushed to the edge. About deciding, one day, to finally stop being quiet. Then she turned back to Joy. Her jaw tightened, her hands clenched at her sides. I've stopped being quiet. For Jennifer, not to flinch, the tension in the room was suffocating now. Not a single phone buzzed, not a cough, not even a breath. The only sound, the click of Jennifer's heel as she took a single step closer to the table, her voice dropping to a whisper. You wanted a moment? Joy, you got it. The studio was silent. Not a soft, expectant silence, a silence so loaded, so unnerving. It made your ears ring. Jennifer Lawrence had just delivered the kind of line that would live in television infamy. You wanted a moment, Joy. You got it, and with that, it wasn't just an awkward interview anymore. It was war. Joy Behar's lips parted, but no sound came out at first. In her career, she had clashed with politicians, celebrities, even fellow co-hosts. But this was different. I see, Joy finally said, her voice strained. So this is what we're doing now. The Oscar winner has decided to lecture me on my own set. Jennifer didn't blink. I'm not lecturing, I'm responding. There's a difference. Oh, please, Joy scoffed, waving her hand dismissively. You've been responding like a teenage diva since the second I asked you a real question, Jennifer. Took a breath, and you've been condescending since the second I walked on this stage. Whoopi buried her face in her hands. Sarah looked like she was about to cry. Even the guest co-host shifted uncomfortably, glancing off camera for any sign that someone, anyone, was going to step in and stop this before it burned down completely. But the fire had already started. Joy took a step closer now, voice lowering. You think being a successful actress makes you untouchable? That we can't ask questions that might make you a little uncomfortable? No, Jennifer said coldly. I think bullying someone under the guise of journalism is cowardly. You didn't come here to challenge me. You came here to humiliate me, Joy barked out a laugh. Oh, honey, if you're humiliated, that's on you. Jennifer's jaw clenched so tight it was visibly trembling. Her hands shook, but her voice remained heartbreakingly steady. Do you know how many interviews I've done? How many times I've been reduced to my body, my relationships, my quirky moments? I've smiled, I've played along, I've taken it. The audience leaned forward. No one dared move. But today, Jennifer said, eyes burning into Joy's, you crossed a line. Joy narrowed her eyes. What line exactly? The one between critique and cruelty. Those 6 words hit the room like a thunderclap. Even the control room staff, trained professionals who'd seen everything, paused mid-command, Jennifer continued, her voice trembling with intensity. You made this personal, pain, and then you expected me to sit here and smile through it. Joy's tone turned mocking. Oh, poor Jennifer, can't handle a few tough questions. This isn't tough, Jennifer replied, voice rising. This is toxic. Another gasp from the audience. Warnings. Clips were already being live-sent to group chats. Hashtags were being born in real time. Joy moved around the table, closer now. Her voice was lower, but more dangerous. Do you know what I think? I think you've gotten so used to being praised, coddled, adored, that the second someone dares to treat you like a regular person, you break. Jennifer took a step closer. Don't break, she said softly. I fight back. Joy's laugh was sharp, cutting. Oh, please, you're not fighting. You're tantruming. No, Jennifer said, voice icy. How to do without tearing someone else down in the process. You're the one tearing people down, Joy snapped. You sit on your throne, give your little political speeches, post selfies in expensive gowns, and tell the world how to think. Jennifer's eyes flashed. I use my voice, just like you do. But here's the difference. Joe, why? Use mine. To uplift, you use yours to belittle. Joy's face flushed deep crimson. You think you're some kind of saint? No, Jennifer said. But I sure as hell don't want to be the villain in a young woman's story. That line struck. Deep, even Joy flinched. Whoopi finally spoke, her voice firm. We need to cool this down. Joy ignored her. You want to play martyr now? Joy spat. Let's talk about how you're praised for every little thing. You trip at the Oscars, and suddenly, you're America's sweetheart. You gain 10 pounds, and it's a revolution. You say something vaguely political, and the world applauds like you cured cancer. I've just tried to do my job, to be human in an industry that punishes women for aging, for speaking up, for existing outside the box they're stuffed into. Joy's voice hit a fever pitch. Then maybe you should have stayed in Kentucky. Silence stopped pure. Awful silence. Even Joy seemed to realize she'd gone too far. Jennifer's face went pale, then flushed. She took a moment. Just one moment. Her breathing shaky, her fingers twitching. She stared at Joy with something far deeper than anger. It was disappointment, betrayal, grief. My hometown, Jennifer said, voice breaking slightly, is filled with people who worked harder than you or I ever have. People who raised me, people who taught me dignity. You don't get to use where I came from as an insult. The audience exploded with a mix of claps and gasps. Joy stood there, stunned, out of lines. Out of defense, Jennifer looked toward the crowd, then the cameras. This isn't what I wanted. This isn't why I came here. But maybe it's what needed to happen. Joy tried to regain footing. Oh, please, don't make this into your next brave moment. Jennifer smiled softly, but not kindly. You've given me a lot to think about, and a lot for the world to see. Joy shook her head, rattled. You won't win this. You know that, right? Jennifer looked at her, really looked, and her voice turned to something eerily calm. Joy, it was never about winning. It was about not letting people like you walk over people like me ever again. Wasn't over, but the power dynamic had shifted. For the first time, Joy looked smaller. The woman who had always controlled the room was now the one being watched, weighed, and judged. Jennifer Lawrence wasn't backing down. She was just getting started. Around her, the studio was paralyzed. production staff hovering behind cameras, co-hosts frozen mid-shift in their seats, the audience gripping the edges of their chairs, breath held hostage. Joy Behar had just told Jennifer to stay in Kentucky, and in that moment, the temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees, because everyone knew what had just happened. It wasn't just a dig, it was a cultural slap across the face. Jennifer inhaled slowly. "Excuse me." Jennifer looked directly into the nearest camera, the main one, the one that had been silently rolling through every painful second. She turned her body toward it. Her posture was straight, poised, and eerily calm. To everyone watching, she began. "You've just seen the reality of what women in entertainment, and frankly, women everywhere, still face when they speak. Up, or stand their ground, or dare to outgrow the box they were placed in. A character assassination masked as journalism. A veteran host using her platform not to ask hard questions, but to pour gasoline on insecurities, bitterness." Joy stood now, as if to reclaim control. "This is my show." "No, Joy," Jennifer interrupted, locking eyes with her. "This is a stage, and today you turned it into a battlefield." Jennifer took a step forward, and her voice impossibly grew stronger. "I'm not the victim. I'm the mirror." Joy's face tightened. "You came at me with every cliché insult that I'm just a pretty face. You mocked my politics, my career, my roots. And now that I won't shrink under it, now that I'm still standing, you're rattled." "I'm not rattled," Joy hissed. "You're shaking." "Joy." Joy looked down. Jennifer pivoted back to the camera. "To anyone who has ever been talked down to in a room they earned their way into, to anyone who has ever been told they're not enough, or too much, or too political, or not political enough." A woman near the front mouthed, "Thank you." Joy tried again. "You're hijacking the narrative." Jennifer turned, slowly, and delivered the final blow. Her voice was a whisper. Not because she was weak, but because she didn't need to raise it anymore. Joy's mouth opened, but no words came. She sat back down hard, as though her own legs could no longer support her weight. The other co-hosts remained silent. Whoopi looked down at her notes, stunned. Sarah covered her mouth. The guest co-host sat motionless, and then Jennifer Lawrence did the unthinkable. She walked around the table. Not storming, not dramatic, just quietly powerful. Each step echoed like punctuation in a poem that had taken years to write. The audience didn't clap. They didn't cheer. They just watched, locked in a moment of collective awe. It wasn't a celebrity walking off a set. It was a woman reclaiming her space in a world that had tried again and again to silence her. But toward Joy, and what she said next would become one of the most quoted lines in television history. "I don't need this show, Joy, but you needed me today. You needed someone to tear down because that's easier than tearing down your own ego. You wanted a villain. I gave you a mirror. You can choose what you see." Then she was gone. The curtain swung closed behind her, and for a full 8 seconds, no one moved, not a single sound. The studio might as well have stopped breathing then. The chair creaked, and Joy stood up slowly, mechanically. She looked around at the stunned faces of her co-hosts, the production crew, the still-rolling cameras, and for the first time in her entire career, Joy Behar had no words. Not a retort, not a quip, not a save, just silence. A studio assistant sprinted across the floor to whisper something to the stage manager. The audience sat still, blinking, unsure if what they'd witnessed was real or some perfectly executed stunt. But this wasn't scripted. There were no cue cards, no applause, signs, no PR handlers swooping in. Just a room full of people who'd watched one woman finally say, "Enough," publicists panicking, fans and critics choosing sides. The story eclipsed every headline that day. But beneath all the buzz, beneath the spectacle, something deeper had cracked open. Because this wasn't just about Hollywood, or talk shows, or Oscar winners. It was about truth, about dignity, about what happens when someone refuses to be gaslit into silence, and instead walks away with their head held high, leaving behind the ashes of a stage that thought it could burn her. And in that silence, the world heard something louder than 1,000 viral interviews. Jennifer Lawrence wasn't just walking off set, she was walking into history,